Good evening, and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 18th, and tonight's movie is The Babadook. Now, aside from one movie that's still on the docket, this is, out of all the movies I'm watching this month, the one that was built up to me the most as being a great movie. Out of all 31 movies, this one has the highest score on Rotten Tomatoes, and anybody I know who's actually seen it says that it's great. So I watched it, and I have to say, they're right. This movie is excellent. I'm giving The Babadook a 9 out of 10, and it is one of my favorite movies that I've watched this month. The plot is that there's this single mother named Amelia who has a son named Sam, and they seem to have like a normal, sort of tense relationship. The kid has a lot of really weird things about him. He likes making these like little weapons. He had like a baseball thrower, a dart launcher, and he's getting in trouble a lot. And it starts out with him just being really, really unmanageable. And they find a children's book. It just like appears on their shelf one day. And it's called Mr. Babadook. And it talks about this pop-up book. It's a really well-designed pop-up book when it comes to being scary. Like, props to whoever actually came up with the design for it. The pictures are great. The pop-ups are great. It's really good looking. And the idea is the Babadook is basically the boogeyman. And it's called that because it causes rumbles, which is represented with a ba-ba-ba-ba-ba sound. And then it knocks on the door 3 times, which is duck, duck, duck. It hides in people's closets. It has a face that'll make you wish you had never been born. And if you let it into your house, you can't get rid of it. After they read the book, and obviously she stops reading once it starts turning really dark, the kid starts doing weird stuff and says that the Babadook made him do it, or the Babadook did it. And it starts out with what seems like the kid going crazy, the kid getting possessed by something otherworldly. But around like halfway through the movie, it starts to flip around. Suddenly it's the mother who's going crazy, the mother who seems like she's getting possessed. That was a really good twist. I watched it with a dorm mate of mine, and another one walked in like 30 minutes in, and the entire time, like, he kept saying how crazy the mother was, and at one point she like snapped and cursed at the kid, and I was like, well, considering what he's done, that's a little bit more justified. And he says, like, what did he do? Because what he did at the first part of the movie is so different than what he does in the second part of the movie, because it starts out with him being nuts, but then he's the normal one, and his mother's going crazy. That was, I think, very smart on the movie's part. It sort of sets up expectations and then goes against them. In the rest of the movie, the mother just gets worse and worse, and she's trying to fight it, and the kid is trying to protect her from the Babadook. Right off the bat, I want to say the leading actress, Essie Davis, absolutely kills it. This is one of the best performances I have ever seen in a horror movie. Her story arc is a lot like Jack Torrance's story arc in The Shining, where it starts out with being a loving parent, and then it slowly turns into them going crazy, them getting possessed, and them becoming murderous. Now, one thing I noticed was the difference between The Shining movie and The Shining miniseries is that in The Shining movie, the actor playing Jack managed to be really scary towards the end, but didn't really pull off being a nice, loving person that well at the beginning of the movie. In the miniseries in like 1997, it was flipped around. He was really good at being the everyman. He wasn't really that scary. Essie Davis manages to play both sides wonderfully. She's really nice and sweet when she's normal, but when she starts going crazy, she can be really scary. She is really good with facial expressions. I thought it was CG because it looks like she's just turning her face into a completely different face. This role is acted in a way that even when you're scared of her, you also feel sorry for her. And the actor playing the kid, while not spectacular, does get the job done. One of the things that I really like about this movie is that a lot of the scares are very gradual and very subtle. One thing that I didn't notice until it was like halfway done is that throughout the movie, the house became like progressively more and more grayscale. Like it starts out like a normal house, but as the movie goes on, more things start becoming shades of gray. And by the end, the entire house is grayscale and just the humans are normal colored. That was something I didn't notice until it was almost done, and they never actually draw attention to it. It's just something that the audience would have to see for themselves. This obviously has a horror effect because the book is black and white. So as the movie goes on, the world that they live in slowly becomes the world of the book. I will say, though, the actual design of the Babadook itself is not very original or impressive. He looks like a lot of different spoofs you've seen in a bunch of different movies. He's really dark, he has, long arms, pointy nails, he has a black top hat, you can't really see his face, but it's pale. Just as an image, the Babadook isn't really scary. It's what it it does that's really horrifying. The story arc of the mother does kind of pay homage to The Shining, but there's also some Exorcist in here. There was a scene that reminded me a lot of the scene in The Exorcist where the mother says, I know my daughter, and that thing upstairs is my daughter. And there was a point in the movie where the son basically says the same thing. You're not my mother. This movie does pay homage to classic horror movies while still being its own thing. Overall, The Babadook is an excellent horror movie. I would recommend it to anybody watching. It's scary, it's well directed, it's well acted, it's well written, it's dramatic, it's effective. All around, it is just a great horror movie. Now let's talk about a few spoilers. One thing that I really like about this movie, and I'm really happy that I decided to watch this with somebody else, because that person, one of my dorm mates, managed to provide a perspective that I wouldn't have thought of. The entire time, it's never actually confirmed. It's never actually made clear that the Babadook is real and isn't just something in the mother's mind. The entire time, you could also argue that this entire thing is just a delusion created by the mother, and her fighting against the Babadook is her fighting against her own insanity. She said at one point that she made children's books in the past, and there was a lot of times where it looks like it's like she falls asleep, but there's a really weird effect. It's like, it looks like a time lapse that's really, really fast. And that doesn't happen every time she falls asleep. But when she does, you could also argue that that's just her blacking out and doing stuff that they think that the Babadook is doing. Also, when she, after the book scares them, she like rips it up to pieces and throws it away. And later on in the movie, it shows up at her doorstep and it's like taped back together. And she sees like the pop-ups start going on their own and it starts showing her going crazy, killing their dog, killing the kid, then killing herself. And then she burns it. And then she doesn't have any evidence that it actually happens when she goes to the police later. The grayscale thing could also be seen as a symbol of her slipping into madness throughout the movie. And the kid could just be seeing what's happening and using his imagination as like a coping mechanism. He could be seeing his mother going crazy as his mother being possessed by a monster. Now, for the most part, this does not seem as likely as a scenario as if the entire thing was real. But the ending makes the lines very blurred. In the movie's climax, the mother shouts down the Babadook, telling it to leave and to never harm her son ever again. And you don't see the Babadook, like, disappear or, like, leave the house. You see it go into the basement. And at the, little epilogue thing they have at the end of the movie, they show the mother go down to the basement with a bowl of, like, earthworms and, like, put it down on the floor. And you see what looks like the Babadook, like, trying to attack her, but then she's telling it to stop. And then it, like, eats the food, and then she leaves. This, I think, makes more sense in the context of her going crazy. It's the insanity that keeps trying to come back since she didn't, like, fully deal with it. She just, like, shut it away. So it keeps trying to creep back up again, and she keeps having to suppress it. This doesn't make as much sense if it was all real, because there's not really any reason why the Babadook monster would suddenly be docile, or at least not as aggressive. The movie ends with her, like, going back out of the basement to spend more time with the son, but you can definitely see in her facial expressions that she knows that the situation that they set up isn't permanent. It's just a temporary solution to a much bigger problem. And that's where they end the movie, and that, I think, was a really smart place to end the movie on. The Babadook is a great example of a psychological horror movie. It's smart, it's well done, it's scary, it's well acted. It's just a really, really, really good movie. Once again, I would recommend it to anybody listening. I'll see you tomorrow.